When you think about primary training during World War II in the United States, you think the Stearman. It's universal, and nearly every pilot in World War II in the United States learned how to fly in a Kaydet. There was a three-tiered system in training a pilot for combat during World War II in the United States, at least in the Army Air Forces. There was primary training, which was the first airplane they get in and fly. Then there was basic training, which was a monoplane with fixed landing gear, a little more complicated. And then there was advanced training, which would be either a single engine aircraft with retractable landing gear if they were going into fighters, or a twin engine aircraft if they were going into bombers or transports. So this is a primary training aircraft. The Kaydet was a primary training aircraft. So this would be the first airplane that a cadet would be flying in. Even more importantly, this was the airplane that they would solo in. And that's a magic moment for a military aviator. I've talked to veterans from World War II, and they know what day, they know the tail number of the airplane they were flying, they know the flight instructor that sent them off. When they come back from that flight, that's when they get their wings. They're a pilot. So for thousands and thousands and thousands of American airmen, whether they be Navy, Marine Corps, or Army Air Forces, this was the airplane that they did it in. On all restorations, the research staff and the restoration staff work hand in glove. The restoration staff has expertise and the research division staff has expertise. And some questions that come from the restoration staff are things like, how is the aircraft painted? And it's not just something simply like colors, it's things like, is it gloss, semi-gloss, or flat? Are there stencils on the aircraft? If there are stencils, what is the font? How big are they? Where are they located? So it really is an investigation. It's almost like being a private investigator, a PI, because every airplane is different. Some airplanes also, they change over time. So when an airplane changes over time, we can't just do the markings from over a course of a year. We have to pick a certain point in time to paint the aircraft as. So in the case of this PT-13D, we picked the day that the aircraft was accepted by the U.S. Army Air Forces. That day was January 13th, 1945. Millions of our visitors will see this snapshot in time, the very same view that the workers at the Wichita plant in Kansas saw in January of 1945.
There were 5 guys total working on the aircraft, probably 2 or 3 full-time. The other ones would come in and help out as needed. And it was just a really great experience because we worked so well together and we would learn from each other and help each other out. Something unique to this, I guess, would be the materials that we used on this airplane, because it's obviously completely different for a fabric aircraft. So it's using the nitrate dopes and the butyrate dopes. One interesting thing about this airplane is the way it's marked, in that it does have Navy and Air Force markings on it both. So that's something a little different compared to some of the other aircraft that we do have. Finishing process it's very tedious. On other aircraft, you're pretty much just prepping the metal, putting a primer, and spraying the color on. This you gotta build your layers of finish on there till you get it nice and glassy smooth, and then you can start putting your colors on. So it's very time consuming. The fabric also takes a little bit longer than it does to do sheet metal, at least from our experience, because we haven't done fabric that much. But overall, it's a very rewarding process, and it comes out looking pretty good. Painting the insignia is always a lot of fun. I enjoy it because you get to lay it out by hand and then tape it off and spray it. This one was actually a bit of a challenge because it does have the inspection door right in the middle of the Stearman bar. Cockpit, you see it has the leather trim around it to keep from bumping your arms on the side of the cockpit here. Standard gauges for an aircraft of that time period, both front and back matching. Our aircraft had a delete plate here because at one point in time they added an electric starter. So we wanted to go back to when it came off the assembly line, so we added the inertial starter back into this aircraft. Oil cap, fuel cap, they're both similar. They both get the particular color circle in the middle. Oil gets yellow, fuel gets red, and then they get hand lettered around the outside with their capacities. Wings were pretty straightforward when we put them on. We were lucky enough to start with an aircraft that had a very strong and stable structure. There was nothing broke on it. When we got inside of it, tore the old fabric off, it looked pretty much brand new inside, just needed a little bit of a dusting, so we were very fortunate. The flying wires for the wings, they were pretty straightforward. We had an assembly manual from the time period, so it tells you, what order to put them on and the tension you want to get the wires to properly hold the wings. This was a 4 or 5 guy job to hold the wings up and get them on. The propeller here, when we got the aircraft to restore, it had a metal propeller on it, but we wanted to go back to right off the assembly line, so it needed the wooden propeller. So we had to locate a wooden propeller. Luckily enough, we had one down in collections. It was in pretty bad shape. It was delaminating. So we had to inject epoxy into the propeller and try and squeeze it back together. It came out pretty good. We were able to contact Insignia to get the original style logos to put on the aircraft, and then we refinished the propeller.
It's exciting to think that all of us that worked on it are going to be gone someday. So 50 years from now, 100 years from now, the work that the restoration staff did here, the great work that they did, is going to be around long after they and I are long gone. It'll be on display in the museum. The museum will still be here, and millions of visitors will read about the start of the military career of those airmen who went on to serve and sacrifice in our greatest foreign war of all time. One of the wonderful things about working here is I learn something new every day, and it's wonderful. And it's one more piece of the puzzle to see the big picture. And it's not just learning from doing the research, it's learning from the talent that's here in restoration. I mean, the skill and knowledge that's here is unbelievable.
It was a lot of fun. It's not often you get to do a project that's from start to finish, done to the exact details that it should be, so it was a lot of fun. You would learn something from the other people on the team. You don't get a chance to do a fabric aircraft that often, so it was definitely a learning experience. Got to try your hand at some new skills. We kind of all learned as we went. One of the main things we learned is you don't have to stretch the fabric as tight as you thought you have to, because the dope really shrinks it. Just having 4 or 5 guys looking at everything all the time helps you pick up all the little details and find out the way it should be.
2, 3, go.
This particular airframe is fully restored and is now on display in the World War II gallery. This restoration is part of a larger project. We are recreating our Tuskegee Airmen exhibit, and this will have a feature spot in that exhibit. The Tuskegee Airmen did much of their primary training on either the PT-13 or PT-17, which is still a Stearman Kaydet, just has a different engine. This airplane is marked as it was when it left the factory, so if it was delivered to the field where the Tuskegee Airmen were training, this is how it would look when it landed. Then they would add some specific markings that relate to that particular field. The Tuskegee Airmen exhibit is going to open in February of 2015. We're very excited. We're expanding the exhibit. We've gone deep into our collection to find artifacts that have never been on display. The curator of the exhibit, Dr. Jeff Underwood, did a great job finding photographs that had never been published or never been displayed in an exhibit. In fact, in some cases, he even found photographs of those artifacts being used or worn by Tuskegee Airmen. Those very artifacts will be on display, which is really exciting. And then there'll be a small diorama that goes with the aircraft with a couple of noted Tuskegee Airmen. So we're real excited about it, and I hope that folks will come out and see this new exhibit when it opens in February.